Good evening, everyone. So, we are from Group 5, and for today's presentation, we will explain the material about periodicity. But before we get into the material, we would like to introduce ourselves first. I'm Shahnaz Amalia Putri.
And hello, my name is Maulana Anwar Sidik.
My name is Dita Pratiwi.
My name is Andita Juan Pratama Putri.
And my name is Elliana.
And also, one member from our group is Monica Margaretha. So, explaining the material. So, the first one is what is periodicity, that will be explained by
Okay, I'm going to explain this part, Shahnaz. Thank you. So, what is periodicity? Periodicity
okay.
refers to the okay. So, periodicity refers to the structure of flow of meanings in a text where information is organized in irregular patterns, and it creates rhythm and balance in discourse, making it easier to understand and process. Next, please. So in periodicity, information flow as waves. There are two separation of waves. The first one is the smaller waves, and what are included into smaller waves are words, phrases, or clauses that build the foundation of meaning itself. And the second one is the bigger waves. The bigger waves includes paragraphs or discourse phases that form larger patterns. Next. And then the next is going to discuss about the role of themes. So the theme itself is the starting point of a clause, framing the focus of what follows behind. And there are two types of themes. The first one is unmarked themes. When the subject begins with the clause, for example, he became very quiet. And the second type is marked theme, when other elements like time or place and start with the clause for emphasis. For example, in the early hours of the morning, blah blah blah. Okay, next. So this is why periodicity matters. Periodicity creates rhythm, predictability, and coherence in a text. Without it, discourse would feel chaotic and hard to follow. It ensures that readers can process information efficiently, understanding both the micro or small waves and also the macro or big wave structures. Okay, that's all, and I give it back to the moderator.
all right, thank you. So, and the next material will be explained by Elliana. Right.
All right, thank you, Shahnaz. So the next material is bigger wave, that is hyper themes and hyper news. We will discuss how discourse is structured by using patterns of theme and news just at the clause level, but across a larger pace of discourse. These patterns help organize the flow of information, predict the connect of each phrase, and summarize the new information introduced in each page. Next, please. And hyper themes guide the direction of a discourse first by predicting its focus, while hypernews, the new information accumulated by the end. The story of the darling ship illustrates these concepts. The hyperteams introduce the crew struggle against a surprise Turkish attack, and the hypernews summarize their victory, while writing tends to emphasize looking forward with hyperteams, and then hypernews provide a retro perspective consolidation as shown in Mandela's reflection on his life, transformation in a long while to freedom. Next, please. And the hyperteams and hypernews structure discourse. So hyperteams predict the content of a page, while a hypernews each structure. Examples including Mandela's reflection on freedom, where the hyperteams introduces the concept of shared liberation, and then the hypernews emphasize the ongoing struggle. Similarly, historical writing used this structure, as seen in analysis of World War II impact on Australia's economic and the history of whaling, where the hyperteams introduce topics, elaborated details follow, and hypernews consolidate and extend the ideas. Next, please. Uh, Here we have macro themes and macro news. Extend the patterns of a theme and new across larger section of a discourse. Macro themes introduce overarching ideas, while a macro news summarize and evaluate key points. Using Tutu's exposition as an example, the macro themes is the questions of justice versus amnesty, and then the macro news consolidate this through Helena's narrative, illustrating the personal cost of a reconciliation. These structures create a hierarchical framework connecting detailed discussions to broader concepts. Next, please. And still in macro themes and macro news, how themes and news operate across multiple layers in the text, with higher level themes and news organizing its overall structure rather than creating unique terms for every layer. These layers are numbered hierarchy to reflect their complexity. For example, in Tutu's Truth and Reconciliation narrative, the chapter title What About Justice serve as the highest level macro themes, with progressively smaller themes and news structuring the content within. Next. And this hierarchical layering of themes guides the text method and development, predicting and structuring the flow of information, while the layering of news focuses on its point, summarizing and expanding the text central ideas. This layered approach ensure coherence and thank you.
All right, thank you, Annie. And now for the next material will be explained by me. So I will explain about how text grows, about hierarchies and series. So periodicity is a process of unfolding text, not a rigid structure that links parts to wholes. In the process of predicting the phases of discourse with macro theme and hyper theme, it constructs a sort of hierarchy of periodicity of smaller units of discourse scaffolded within the larger units. There are alternative ways of unfolding discourse, and the first way is comparing hierarchy with an alternative strategy for expanding text called serial expansion. And the left one, as you see, is the example of the text. So from this example, we can say that the strategy of serial expansion is more like chaining than periodicity, because this discourse is added on what went before without being predicted on a higher level theme. So the writer of this text, Tutu, takes moment to develop some background information first. He starts from he built up the arguments by restating this issue, and then moves to the exposition, highlighting the slow build up, and takes time to build his argument towards the end. And this slow build up is forming a serial movement because he did not jump from one topic to another, and he makes sure that the exposition chapters expands in correct order. And last, the serial expansion and hierarchy of periodicity is a dynamic process, so it flows as the text unfolds. And next is another example for interplay of periodicity with serial expansion. So this text is Mandela's autobiography. This is some part in the end of his autobiography, and the autobiography uses the same combination of serial expansion and hierarchy of periodicity. There's a large amount of serial expansion usage in the autobiography because Mandela moved from one setting in time to the next with a lot of sequential development within each of them. And Mandela broke the sequential order for twice to explain about another topic and expands the topic to add more information into the content he's telling. And the type of text is recount. The typical recount stages is orientation, records of events, and reorientation. Like as you can see here, that is orientation, and then this is the reorientation as the last part. And then there are layers of hyperthemes and hyper. The example for the hyperthemes and hypernews are on the right side of in this picture, but it's unclear. I'm very sorry. And then orientation function as macro theme, reorientation as macro new. The whole book of the autobiography function as a higher level of macro new. And last, the expansion of the text may or may not explicitly scaffolded by layers of themes and news. And next is about a hard reading that will be explained by Juan.
Okay, thank you, Shahnaz. I'll explain about hard reading. So some texts are difficult to read and to understand in abstract discourse. Example of hard reading. This is the paragraph from Raphael's postcolonial discourse on translation and Christian conversion in the Philippines, contracting colonialism. Next slide, please. So the internalization of this exterior hierarchy consists of two interrelated procedures. The first one is recording of past event, and the second one is reproduction of interrogation discourse contained in the convention manual. This phase opens with transition from what preceded internalization of an. These procedures are structured as seen by the linker first and comparative identification second. And finally, it is completed through the identity of the accounting process and the reproduction of the discourse of interrogation. Next. So this is the ideational metaphor and periodicity. This kind of framing doesn't solve all our problems because the text is full of ideational metaphors in addition to concrete participants like manuals, the priest, and the penitent. In this kind of discourse, high-level themes and use have more information to predict and distill than lower levels ones. This puts more pressures on them to use grammatical metaphors that pack in the information they are predicting and filtering. Ironically, the things we need to steer us to the text can be among the hardest to understand. Beyond this, abstract discourse include and enables many specialized lexes. Since we are talking about Catholicism, there are representations of religion, including the focus on discussion and confession.
All right, thank you, Juan. And then we are moving to the next material that will be explained by Anwar. Please.
Okay, thank you, Shahnaz. So the next is going to be the discussion about a note on heading. You can go to the next slide. So there's the key points on headings and the organization itself. There's like a numerical and alphabetical labeling system. The first one is I'm sorry. So legal texts are organized using a hierarchical structure to clearly organize the information itself. Sections are divided into smaller units such as subsections, paragraph, subparagraphs, and also this detailed breakdown ensures clarity and also the precision of the information delivered. The next one is sections are further grouped into chapters, and each number and a descriptive title. For example, Chapter 3, Investigation of Human Rights Violation. Uh, it outlines the responsibilities and the processes related to addressing human rights abuse. Next. Okay, the second key point is grammatical features in the legal text. The first one is complex sentence structure. The legal documents rely on densely packed sentence to convey multiple layers of information efficiently. These sentences often contain numerous clauses, ensuring all legal details are included without fragmentations. And then the second point, intersentimental constraints mean that reference to information within the text are linked through numerical and also the alphabetical system, as I mentioned previously, by maintaining consistency and also the flow of the information. And the next point is purpose-driven phrases. And what does it mean? So phrases, for example, like it is hereby notified, serve as a formal opening that signal the intent or purpose of the act itself. And these standardized structures set the tone for legal obligations and also the rights. And the next is sentence often includes multiple justifications or preambles, and it like emphasizing the rationale of the legal provisions. And for example, long introductory statements may outline the historical, social, or political context. Next, Shahnaz. So, the next point is hierarchy of periodicity itself. So, within the hierarchy of periodicity, there is like information flow and also the packaging. The point number one is the legal text uses grammar as a tool for organizing and presenting information systematically, ensuring that critical points are emphasized and easily referenced. So grammar does the heavy lifting of the discourse organization itself. The point number two is macro themes represent the overreaching objective and primary topics of a sections. and it likes provide a roadmap to the reader. So top level headings or micro themes introduce general objectives itself. The number three is hyper themes break down the details within those objectives, specifying tasks, responsibilities, or procedural steps. This layered structure ensures that the flow of information is logical and hierarchical by aiding some comprehension to the reader. So subsections like hyper themes, detailed tasks, and also the processes itself. Thank you. I give it back to Shahnaz.
All right, thank you, Anwar, for the explanation. And now to the next material will be explained by Dita. Please.
All right, the rest of the material, which is about texture, facing discourse system. So discourse is organized in various ways. The first one is explicit scaffolding, which is creates a structured hierarchy beyond individuals' clauses by using layers of theme and use to guide the direction of the discourse. And the other one is serial expansion, which is a shift from one discourse phase to another without the use of explicit scaffolding, thereby creating a more fluid transition between phases. And texts often combine these two methods to create dischargeable chunks of information, and the interaction of discourse system reveals continuity or meanings that continue, and discontinuity or meanings that change between phases. Next is the case study, which is about Helena's repercussion phase. So the left one is the tag phases, which are his hell and her hell. In this text, there are continuity. There are limited conjunction that indicate a smooth flow between subphases. So in his how, the conjunction that use are instead of and but, and in her how, the conjunctions that use are but and if. And there are also discontinuity, which is significant changes in identity or who is the focus, ideation about what is discussed, expectancy is about what is anticipated, appraisal, which are about emotional and modality, and periodicity, which is the theme or news patterns that mark the shift between his hell and her hell. Next, please. Okay, so the next is about the discourse features and the face his hell. So there are 5 points here. The first one is identity. So the main identity in this phase is Helena's husband, indicated by the repeated use of pronouns such as he, his, him, I, and favorite. And the second one is about ideation. So in his how, ideation features body parts such as face, hands, eyes, and restlessness such as resting, jolt awake, sits motionless, and staring. And the third one is about expectancy. So in his how, the expectancy develops around his emotional breakdown. The the fourth one is about appraisal. So his how highlights affect and a great deal of amplification, while modality is concerned with occasional and habitual behavior that marked by the words such as sometimes and would. And the fifth one is about periodicity. So in his how, the theme revolves around Helena's husband, established through subjects such as he, I, eyes, and for the news, the point is about Helena's husband feeling. Next, please. And this one is the discourse features in her how phase. So there are 5 points also. The first one is about identity. So in her how, both Helena and her husband are central identity in this space. It's reflected in pronouns I, me, my, his, him, he, the man, and God. And the second one is about ideation. So in her hell, the ideation features processes of cognition, such as understood, knew, and realized. There are also supplication like praying and pleading, departures such as get out and leave, and also there are madness such as wrong, change, and going mad. And the third one is about expectancy. So in her hell, expectancy develops around her growing awareness and needs to escape. And the fourth one is about appraisal. So her hell contains much less explicit describing Helena's feelings, such as went through hell, and judgment like mad and wrong, while modality is absolute like the words never and can't. And the fifth one is about periodicity. So in her hell, the theme is more varied. So it incorporating multiple perspective as well as the news, where the points are also vary, such as Helena's. There are such as Helena's confusion, supplication, escape, and her husband madness. So that's all about me. I will give it back to Shahnaz. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the explanation, Dita, and that wraps up our presentation. If there's any wrong information or any errors, we are very sorry. And thank you.